Welcome to another edition of Crime Time with DutyRon and Ed Wallace. We are two retired New York City police detectives with over 20 years of law enforcement each. If you like all things true crime related from the police detective's perspective, hit that subscribe button, hit that notification bell so you will get all things DutyRon and this guy somewhere over here, Ed Wallace, when we go live or upload a video. Today, we're going to get into the new evidence that was recovered by a YouTube channel called Check It TV. I think if you're not living under a rock and if you haven't heard, it's been brewing all night long from yesterday late on California time going into the night. Overnight, I woke up this morning to a flurry of messages on DutyRon.com. Thank you to everybody who's come and sent messages. But Ed, how's it going today? How you doing?
Doing good, Ron. Doing good. Just very disappointed in what I'm seeing, if it turns out to be in fact true, because I've seen no news reporting of this, nor have I seen any press releases from the law enforcement jurisdiction in this case. All I see is this YouTube channel and
Right.
the claims that are being made by it.
Right. Before we get into the meat and potatoes of this thing, I want to just say, as we always do, I got to give thanks and praise to our Patreon supporters, the channel members, and all of the folks who positively engage in this Crime Time with DutyRon community. When you leave messages and you subscribe and you engage with us, we greatly, greatly appreciate it. So thank you. I'm giving thanks and praise to each and every one of you who hit the subscribe button and hit the thumbs up and leave us comments, because your engagement and your kind of questioning back and forth with us, it's just like an open courtroom, and we love it. We can't get enough of that engagement. So if you like all things, engagement wise from people who have walked the walk and talked the talk, please consider subscribing. All right, let's jump right into this thing, Ed. I have no stuff to share. I'm not going to be sharing any content, any kind of press release, because there is no press release. We are going by Check It TV. Up until yesterday, I never heard about him, but I understand that Check It TV has been sleuthing and doing videos from the early stages of Kiely Rodni going missing on Saturday morning. So Check It TV has been kind of quietly in the background doing his thing. And yesterday he came across, while kayaking and doing his detective work, because he felt that they didn't, these are his words, he felt that they didn't do a thorough investigation after the extraction of Kiely Rodni's vehicle and her body, and he took it upon himself to go out to the lake and do some of his own investigating. And what do we have? We have a hairbrush, various miscellaneous other items, a backpack, I believe, and what's purported to be, and there is a photo of it out there, what's purported to be Kiely Rodni's laptop. And he showed it down 14 feet down below in the water. Ed, you got to take that call?
No.
Full screen.
No.
He showed it on his YouTube channel. Again, if you haven't seen it, just go and check, check CheckIT TV, and you will see it. It's a lot of shaky video and so forth. But Ed, I just want you to take this, because this was your forte. You in crime scene in the NYPD, 15 years of recovering evidence. You spoke when we had Doug on just a couple of days ago, 3 or 4 days ago. We had Doug from Adventures with Purpose on with us, and Paul, our scuba,
commanding officer, yep,
sergeant, commanding officer of the Harbor Scuba team. Mm-hmm. And you made a mention about what you would have done if it was your scene.
Okay, well, first of all, folks, I just want to say to our audience from the UK, so sorry for your loss of your queen. Long live the Queen, and now King Charles has just ascended to the throne.
Yes.
And so our hearts go out to you for your loss. Second of all, folks, I'm not here to bash law enforcement, but I call balls and strikes. Okay, I'm forensics. Forensics doesn't take sides. Okay, so I work for the prosecution on some cases. I work for the defense on other cases because forensics is just science. Okay. It doesn't take sides. But when we were viewing the video in that last episode, if you saw it, I said specifically, all right, that if this was my crime scene investigation, all right, and the scuba divers were not going to be able to do forensic evidence recovery on the water, then I would ask them to seal the windows. And we can go down there with plastic wrap and magnets and any number of other things to seal those open windows to keep everything within the vehicle. And I also said on that show that the vehicle should not have been flipped. It could have been dragged out on its roof as it laid there on that position. Okay. And then if you remember,
Ed, what's the advantage of it being dragged out on its roof? Sorry to interrupt.
Because once it flipped, when you looked at the video from Adventures with Purpose, you see that a lot of the loose content that was in the vehicle is now on the roof liner in the interior. Okay. And
it settles down.
Right. It's now on the roof liner. Okay. Because of gravity and so forth, it settled to the roof. And the window was open. The passenger side front window was open. The driver's side rear window was half open. Okay. There was no reason to flip the vehicle, because when you flip the vehicle, if you didn't seal the windows, then stuff could get out. And obviously stuff got out. Okay.
Yeah.
And, if the scuba divers were down there, the FBI scuba divers were down there managing this and assisting in righting the vehicle to get it on its wheels, how come they didn't know this? How come they didn't see materials coming out of the vehicle? Again, and then if you look at that last episode we did, and you see me talk to our commanding officer, our former commanding officer of the scuba unit, and I said to him, if this was my crime scene, after the vehicle was pulled out, I would ask our scuba team to go back down there and do a line search for anything that may have gotten out of the vehicle or anything that was now subject to search that area. Line search, go down there with magnets and you do a methodical line search. You can get a line, you drive a spike in the ground, you tether it, and then you can do a methodical line search with magnets and visual, because there was good clarity in that particular lake, and identify things like this, right?
Yeah, clear and evident. I mean, when I don't know if I shared it with you, but I don't know if you had a chance to review or evaluate the video that Check It TV uploaded.
I did see
a lot of videos, but he's on a kayak and he's holding a phone, and he stands up at one point, and he's like, look down here, and you see a silver shining object. The water is clear as day, and you could see from the shoreline when he's looking for the pieces of glass. He's looking for broken out, the broken out window pieces, things of that nature. Well, when he's looking at that broken shards of glass, you see that water. It's as clear. It's crystal clear.
And he put the phone twice underwater to show you that, and right. I did see it. And you could see it from the surface. So he was on his little kayak above the surface, and you could see it.
Right.
Okay. Right. There's no excuse for this. I'm sorry. Did they not go back in the water after they pulled the car out, or was like, oh, we got the car, we have the victim. Okay, right. we're done here.
Well, let me put a disclaimer out there too, as well. Again, I know that everybody's going to have opinions, and this is a black eye on law enforcement. It's a bruise. It's a bad bruise on law enforcement. But until the family or somebody from an authority that can positively make an identification through a serial number, through I know that laptop is probably shot, the circuit board and all that is done. You're not going to be able to charge it up and fire it up, but brought into the forensics lab, you could take that hard drive out, or you could look at the labeling and so forth, and know that Apple device is in fact Kiely Rodni's. But we do not, and let me just say this, we do not have 100%, and I'm not taking anything away from Check It TV. If he didn't do what he did, how long would that have sat there? And shame on law enforcement, whether it is the Nevada County Sheriff, which we now are hearing is the lead on this thing, and FBI's mistake, shame on them, because this is part of your job, is to not just recover her body when you are handed. They basically were gift wrapped and handed that vehicle and her remains by who? Adventures with Purpose. They gift wrapped that thing to them, and then now, if you get something gift wrapped, that's an embarrassment in itself. Let's be
Listen,
real here.
this is not the first time this has happened, and I've been involved in cases where this has happened in my retirement career. So I get hired by the Detectives Endowment Association to represent a couple of indicted detectives, and that were involved in a police-related shooting. I'm not going to go into the specifics of the case, but it was very high profile, all over the media. Anyhow, I'm involved in this up to a year later, and I start examining vehicles from the crime scene, and one of the vehicles was actually impounded in internal affairs, and I went and looked at it, and I found ballistics evidence in the rain well that should have been collected a year ago.
Oh my God.
From the original crime scene. Okay, it happens. Okay, it's a black eye when it happens, but you have to dot your I and cross your T. Literally, there's no excuse for this. Okay, and it makes the investigators look sloppy, and it is.
Yes.
They are being sloppy. If I find it a year later, okay. So I'm sorry to call the balls and strikes, but that's just the way it is. When things go great, you get the credit. When things go bad, well, that's yours too.
Yeah. Right. And you said it so well in the beginning of this live stream. If you cannot call balls and strikes and do it fair and impartial, if you cannot say, hey, what you just threw was not a strike. If you can't call it as you see it, then
you're a partisan.
You're very partisan, and
you're a partisan. You can't take sides like that.
No. And we're calling it as we see it here, pending 100% that laptop and all that stuff. And I'm not taking anything away from it. It was a laptop and personal effects. That hairbrush, you could take it into the lab, you could do the DNA on it, you could look it over. But we have three. Go ahead.
There's so many things also flying around out there that there was a phone recovered, but I can't seem to confirm that anywhere.
Yeah, so we're looking to confirm that, and I'm hoping that because of Click It TV and the efforts that man made, that it's going to force law enforcement to say something, because you can't tell me, Ed, that there's not one crack reporter, investigative reporter in that county that is not going to jump on this story. If there's no investigative reporter or somebody from any local news media outlet or major news media outlet that doesn't jump on this, then shame on the media and the press.
One other thing too that I pointed out during the last episode is, in their efforts to flip the car, they broke the driver's side window open, which was closed during the dive, and damaged the side view mirror, to the vehicle. Again, once they broke that window open, there's another open window now where things can fly out of the vehicle as they're trying to flip the vehicle right side up.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. And there's one of our good friends from South Africa. She says, Ed, I remember clear as day when you explained it the other night. By a show of hands here in the chat, who was live with us when we covered? Where did Ed go? I took him out. Hold on, I got to add him back in. Sorry, Ed. Who was live with us when we were live with Doug from Adventures with Purpose? And we had this conversation. As a matter of fact, we even doubled down. We asked, Ed and I think, Ed, you started the conversation, but I continued it. You asked, hey, Doug Bishop, did you see the FBI diver down below with that vehicle? And he answered yes. Ed, any comments or thoughts on that?
Well, I went, yeah, he did say that. And then I asked him, was that person, the diver that was escorting the vehicle out of the water along its side as it was being pulled out, is that the FBI? And he said yes. Now, in addition to this, after I got wind of all of this yesterday and today, I went looking and I reviewed all this footage. I found some aerial footage of where you can clearly see the vehicle underwater. You can see the divers working on the vehicle underwater. And then once they get the tow line hooked up to it and they right the vehicle, then the divers move away from the vehicle up towards the shoreline, and they're basically near the shoreline as the vehicle is being pulled by the cable out of the water. Okay.
Right.
And there was no divers alongside the vehicle at the time. You could clearly see all of this. So,
Right.
so they were out of the water. They weren't submerged at that point. They didn't have their goggles, their mask underwater watching the vehicle. So who knows how much stuff got, thrown out of that vehicle.
Right. And could have actually moved with the current, moved downstream.
Well, there's very
down
little
the
current
river.
in that lake.
But I'm
yeah.
saying a very light object could move just with water movement.
Yeah.
Cecile Mathers sends in a $20 super chat. I missed it, but I want to read it. It says, "Thank you, DutyRon and Ed. You make sense out of chaos." Also, another super chat. Hold on, another one came in. Mary Flynn sends us a super sticker, giving us hugs and kisses, Ed. Listen, we're all frustrated. We're mad as hell, and we're not going to take this anymore. This is just, I could list right here with you 3 failures that Ed and I have covered and involved law enforcement. The TDCJ over in Leon County, right?
Texas, yes.
Right, in Leon County, Texas, a family of 5, a grandfather and his grandchildren were slaughtered by Gonzalo Lopez because of law enforcement failures. Texas, again, Uvalde, the school shooting, the massacre there. We were all saddened, shocked, disgusted by the lack of action taken. And then the Chaffee County Sheriff's Department in the Suzanne Morphew case. She's presumed dead with no recovery of her body. In that case, Barry Morphew, her husband, who stood charged with first-degree murder, walked a free man because they effed up the evidence. They walked that bicycle up the hill. Ed, remember how mad you were about that?
Yeah, and people said that I was being overreacting to that, and I said, you're being nearsighted. You're missing the big picture here. Okay, and I mean, look at the difference between that case and what just happened in Tennessee. With the recovery of the jogger that was abducted and murdered. Okay,
absolutely.
You have
Elijah.
Yeah, right. So you have to treat everything to the higher standards. All right, because then you're less likely to make these mistakes. And I think it's a little harsh for some people in the chat to say cover up. I don't think it's a cover up. I just think it was mistakes, lack of experience, and incompetence.
Mistakes one after the other that are inexcusable. If this new evidence that was recovered by Check It TV on YouTube, we have over 9,000 man hours in this thing, right? Several different agencies on the Kiely Rodni case. We saw the banners that they put up at the press conferences and how it was all, shaking hands and kissing babies. Everybody was doing everything, right? Adventures with Purpose comes in and in 37 minutes recovers the vehicle with her remains inside of it. Now, at that point, Ed, there's a lot of people that say, why couldn't Adventures with Purpose did the whole wrap up of this thing? Can you explain to the folks the process when you have a potential? Just let me finish. You explain for the folks that don't understand why, at the point when they discovered that vehicle and a human remains inside of it, that they had a legal obligation to say, "Here you go, guys, take it over."
I mean,
this is your forte.
You can see Doug say it in his video. Okay, it's a crime scene. Okay, we got to go hands off now. Okay, notify the police. First, they notified the family, and then they notified the police. And as civilians, they have to back off now. That is not their responsibility or duty. And under the law, had they started manipulating things, like normally they take the license plate off the vehicle. Well, if they would have done that, then they would have been tampering with evidence, right? And messing with a crime scene, and there could be criminal consequences for that. But they knew that, so they're professionals. They didn't do that. They just took notes. They documented what they saw. They gave that information about what they saw on the exterior search of the vehicle and looking through the windows and looking through the open windows and so forth. And they related that information to the law enforcement officers that responded. And so they did the right thing, and then they stepped off and backed out, and then the FBI came in with their divers and took over.
Yeah. And you know, some people, again, they need to hear it, and that's why I asked you to do that, Ed. There's no do-overs in this thing. You
No.
either get it right or you don't get it right. And in
You know,
this case here, they didn't get it right.
well, you know, in the big picture, at this point in the investigation, you don't know what's important and you don't know what's not important. Okay, you don't know what's probative or not probative. Maybe in the big picture here, the laptop means nothing because there's nothing that tells anything about the incident or what happened. Okay, but that doesn't mean you let it lie on the bottom of the lake. Okay,
Right, so there's a picture of the laptop. Ed, you could keep talking. I'm going to go full screen with me.
Yeah, it's just crazy. You know, that a more thorough search wasn't conducted of the bottom of that lake where the vehicle was by the scuba divers.
Right. It's just mind-boggling. It's so mind-boggling to me. And here is a picture of part of the laptop and this backpack here. So it's just a whole host of, you know, bad stuff here. And I just got such a bad taste in my mouth from this. You know, again, when I was getting ready to go to bed last night, I had a quick conversation with Doug and Jared from Adventures with Purpose. And we just exchanged a brief brief dialogue in regards to this. It left me feeling really embarrassed for law enforcement, and it's a black eye as we speak, Ed, not just to them, to everybody, because now our people who support law enforcement, now they have severe questions about competency here. And again, you know, even the fact that Adventures with Purpose was able to come in there and in 37 minutes or whatever it was, 30 some odd minutes, identify and find her vehicle and her remains. That in itself, you know, was very questionable, but it was something that I could get past. But now this new development of Check It TV coming across yesterday, a laptop that I just showed here, and personal effects of allegedly of Kiely Rodni, it just goes on in a different level, you know.
Okay, but here's another issue I have with this. Now, I understand the YouTuber who found this stuff thought he was doing the right thing by taking it out of the lake. Okay, well, you should have made the call to law enforcement immediately and brought them to, instead of taking it out of the lake himself, though. He should have
but he
let them
waited
take it
4
out.
hours. He waited 4 hours before,
I understand,
or maybe longer before he took it out, but I know what you're saying. He should have never taken that out.
Did he have gloves on? No. You know, listen, folks, you can still get fingerprints from wet items. Okay, if the fingerprints were deposited before they were submerged in water, you can still leave fingerprints on glass while underwater. So if I was underwater and I touch glass, I can still leave fingerprints on that glass. Okay. Right. There's DNA. You know, there's all kinds of cellular DNA that could still be around, as opposed to you know, your biological fluid DNA, which would have been, you know, it would have been what's the word I'm looking for? I'm having a little brain fart here. Diluted and of no use. Right. But you know, and then somehow the grandfather shows up on scene, and the grandfather is given the laptop, and he's touching it now.
Right. So Investigation 101, Ed, says that if you are an internet, you know, if you're playing detective, or if you want to try to uncover or look for evidence like this, you need to know the do's and don'ts. And unfortunately, I don't think he did it on purpose.
No, he didn't. He did it because he didn't know better. I mean, remember what I said a couple episodes ago? RAIN. Recognize, avoid, isolate, and notify. Recognize something as an item of evidence. Avoid the evidence. Isolate the evidence from yourself and those that are not trained to deal with it, and then notify the people that are trained to deal with it to come and get it. Right. You know, right. So you know.
Hey
Look,
guys, again,
like,
that rain acronym is out there. You could look it up on the internet. You could Google it. And Ed talks about this all the time. If you're not yet subscribed to Crime Time with DutyRon and Ed Wallace, please take a moment right now to hit the thumbs up on this live video. Subscribe. It costs nothing. Hit that red subscribe button. It is free. We are going to have tonight a retired chief of staff from the New York City Medical Examiner's Office, Barbara Butcher. We all know and love Barbara. She has thousands of investigations under her belt in the legal medical death investigation field, right? Did I say that right, Ed?
yes.
Sometimes, yeah. So Barbara Butcher she is the premier resource when it comes to death investigations. We're going to have her 8 o'clock p.m. Eastern Standard Time live with Ed and I. We're going to talk about the overview of the Kiely Rodni autopsy, what they're looking for in the tox reports, what can they get? Can they still determine if she's been in the water arguably 2 weeks? Can they still determine from a medical examiner standpoint if she had alcohol in her system? Can they, under no uncertain terms, can they determine if she was drugged by somebody in a nefarious way? If she was given a date rape drug or something vicious like that, can they discover that? And what will they do? Ed, I know you're going to have a whole notepad of questions for Barbara because there's so many unanswered questions.
Yeah, by now they should have the autopsy results. Okay.
Cause and manner should be known.
That's right. They should know if she drowned. They're definitely going to be waiting on tox because that's going to take, hopefully in California it's faster than Alabama, but it should take 4 to 6 weeks or 6 to 8 weeks, depending on the jurisdiction. Yeah, if she drowned or she didn't drown, if they found blunt force trauma, if they found any sorts of injuries, stab wounds, gunshots, I mean, these things should be readily available for a cause and manner of death. Okay, now
that should be clear and evident
right.
in a initial result.
Also, manual strangulation or anything like that.
Broken hyoid.
All of those things, right? And right. So Barbara and I will go over all of that in great detail tonight. But she's 16. She is a minor. They could be holding back releasing that because of the age or because the family doesn't want it released. But if it's a criminal investigation, eventually it's going to get out, especially if there's going to be, if a suspect is found and they're going to indict the suspect on charges of manslaughter, murder, or whatever the case may be.
Right. And if you can, because the writing's too small, this is from Rocky Pastorino, sends in a $10 super chat, and he was behind searching for Naomi Iron.
Right. He says,
Burnley, Nevada.
Hey, Rocky, thanks for the $10. I think every person should be involved in the actual missing person case so that they know the procedure on how to handle possible evidence from any kind of scene. And spot on. If you're going to be doing volunteer work, and you need to have some basic training in evidence identification and safeguarding of the evidence.
Right. Some of the people in the chat, again, listen, we know that Check It TV spent over 4 hours or more waiting for law enforcement to come. But if you get impatient, there's no, and if you're looking to get to the truth and you're looking to recover evidence that was missed by law enforcement, you do no good by recovering that evidence without gloves and doing it the proper way. You should just leave it there and camp out there until law enforcement shows up. Make those phone calls, call 911, keep calling 911. And if they don't answer, if they don't come, you tell them, I'm going to call the attorney general. I'm going to call the governor's office. You have to bark and jump up and down. And then finally, they did come out there, but everything was already extracted from the water. Again, Ed Wallace, expert crime scene analysis. He knows what needs to be done and how that evidence. Look at the OJ trial, right? We had Mark Furman take evidence and put it in the trunk of his vehicle and take it home. The defense went crazy with that. They went nuts with the way that evidence was handled in the OJ Simpson trial. That was a nightmare.
Yes, it was a nightmare. You don't bring evidence to your home. You don't stick it in your personal refrigerator. Right. That was, those are gimmies. You gave the defense attorneys ammunition to smack you down with it.
Correct. Vet Girl, RWB, says the front of her car facing the lake. and not the shore after it flipped. I think that was so interesting and intriguing. Please and thanks.
Yeah, well, there's many tests that we can do to potentially show how that happened. But there's various theories out there. But based on the weight of the vehicle, whether it entered from the rear or whether it entered from the front, there's going to be a little buoyancy, and so it'll float for a little bit before gravity takes over, and then the engine's weight will nosedive the vehicle. Now, the fact that several of the windows were open, one fully, one partially, that's also interesting. And depending on how the water is rushing in, it could cause the car to twist. So there's a few different physics dynamics that are involved here, but it's really interesting stuff. And if we had the time and money and someone to back us, we can go out and buy a similar car and run a few tests if you can get permission from the owners of that reservoir and do something like that. Because I've done a lot of.
I think it's federal. I think it's federal land.
Yeah, I've done a lot of things like that for the district attorneys and defense attorneys, reconstruction work, mostly with ballistic trajectories and things of that nature.
Right. So people are asking in the chat, and this is a good one here. Did the grandfather take possession or look at the laptop, or did law enforcement? Again, I'm not following this Check It TV every second of the day. He's uploaded lots of videos. He's done a lot of videos. However this happened and however this went down, again, as Ed just explained in no uncertain terms, that nothing should have been touched in that water. It should have been left there. He should have just kept eyes on it and then waited and had somebody from the police department retrieve it. So, however it was retrieved, if it in fact was retrieved by the police department, then that's good. It's a good thing. But if you have multiple hands on that laptop, if you are looking to get some evidence that is used in the future, perhaps, because we don't even know if this is a criminal case at this point. They haven't told us anything. Pending the results of cause and manner of death and the tox report, that's the only time that we're going to know whether this is a criminal case. So people are saying, brace yourself, Ed, and I want your thoughts on this. People are saying, brace yourselves for them to just call it a tragic accident, a DWI accident or an accident. What's your thoughts on that, Ed? Well,
again, if that's going to be the case, it's going to come from the medical examiner, okay, from the evidence obtained from the body. And Purity, I see what you wrote, and we said it at the beginning of our show. There is no proof so far, just this guy saying this, okay? And it hasn't been released by the media. I haven't found any news stories about the new evidence. I haven't seen any press releases from the law enforcement agency involved in the investigations. So we're 100% on board with you with this. So it's got to be answered out. One way or another, somebody, if law enforcement came, as they did 4 hours later, and took possession of this stuff, they got to answer this out.
Yeah. So Smiley says, hope your wrist is feeling better. So this is what I got going on, a little bit of blue, a little black and blue. It looks like I had a couple of rounds in a prize fight. Listen, this is unfortunately what is going to happen, and this is what is happening here. It's now a breeding ground for everybody to jump on the corruption bandwagon and everybody point the finger at police. And you know what? They kind of did it to themselves. So I already know that this is what's going to happen. People are going to just, that were a little bit iffy on law enforcement to begin with, are going to just say, see, I told you, they're doing this on purpose. Again, we don't feel strongly that they intentionally did this, but this is one misstep after the other. If in fact it's proven that this laptop and the personal effects came from that vehicle, and Ed, I think there's a strong possibility that this stuff did come from that vehicle.
Yeah, and why was it the FBI divers? Where was the local divers? Were they not available at this point? I mean, when you have too many chiefs and not enough Indians, when you have too many different jurisdictions involved in something, a lot of things slip through the cracks. Because you think, okay, one jurisdiction thinks that this jurisdiction is doing this, and you're not communicating properly, and things like this get missed.
Right. So somebody in the chat, Cato, I think, says police dove for the rest of the belongings this morning, and I think the family was there. I did see that on Twitter. I don't remember who that tweet came from, but I did see that, words to that effect on Twitter, that Some members of Kiely's family were there, and then they did an official dive this morning. Again, we're not here to put a Band-Aid on it. We're not here to defend them. Like Ed said, we call it as we see it. And what we're seeing right now, we don't like. It's a strike, and it is not good. There's no way to sugarcoat it. If you see anybody trying to sugarcoat this from the retired law enforcement or retired, people from the feds or whatever, that's not a good look. It would not make any sense for us to say for face value that this was all just a big misunderstanding. This is a big mess up from, this case has been odd from the get-go, from the kids not wanting to speak about it and the parents telling the kids not to speak about it, the girlfriend Sammy and the other friend and the boyfriend. There's so much odd behaviors of all of the people that have been involved in this, including law enforcement. It's just, for me, it's a mind-blowing situation. But listen, I'm looking forward to us getting down to answers from our medical examiner expert, Barbara Butcher. She's got a book coming out in 2023. She's going to talk about her new book coming out. But we are going to go over. So send on DutyRon.com any of your questions for tonight's show. That's 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. That's East Coast time. Ed Wallace, myself, and Barbara Butcher from the retired chief of staff from the medical examiner's office in New York City. She's going to join us, and we're going to ask the tough questions. And I'm also going to ask her, and please, these are questions that as investigators you need to know. Will they do, what are the exams from A to Z, what they're going to do? Is there going to be a rape kit? Are they going to be able to figure out if, in fact, there was some kind of nefarious activity or behaviors that led to her death? And I think, like you said, Ed, cause and manner is going to be the first thing. And then the toxin, all that other stuff is just going to be, and we want to know how long it's going to take and why are they holding out on cause and manner? Ed, I know you touched on it before. There's a lot of new people that came in here. Why do you think they're not releasing that right away? They know already about that.
Well, again, it would be pure speculation on my part. But if it was a drowning, and there are, you could still have a drowning and be a crime. Right. Especially if it's associated and there's associated blunt force trauma injuries or other type of injuries that are found that are inconsistent with just a crash into the water and a drowning. So maybe there is a criminal element here to this particular case, and they're holding their cards close to the vest because they don't want to tip their hand.
Yeah. True Crime with Shannon says she's a member for 3 months. Thanks for all this great information. We appreciate you. Thank you, Shannon. Thank you for being a channel member. And again, if you guys are not yet subscribed, consider right now hitting the subscribe button. It's a red button. It's free. If you want to become a member of this channel memberships, we put out some exclusive content that we release to the channel members on special occasions. Consider becoming a Patreon supporter as well. It helps us to do some of the things like the donation that we gave to Adventures with Purpose. We use the super chat money and the Patreon and channel memberships money to pay it forward to great groups like EquiSearch Midwest, Adventures with Purpose, Mark Class from the Class Kids Foundation. We made a $500 donation to them over a year ago. When he came, Mark Class from the Class Kids Foundation, he was a guest of ours, and we spoke about Orrin and Orson West, Sincere and Classic.
I want to thank Dr. Ed and Just Julie for the 1999 super sticker there. You both have said, don't touch things, and EquiSearch has pounded this in our heads. Do not touch, keep hands away. That's absolutely 100% right.
You are 100% right. And again, like I said, we are looking to not lead the charge in the conversation. We want to educate, but we also want to hear your sides as well. So our ears are always open, and we want to hear what you have to say. So we encourage you to leave comments down below in the comment section. Definitely engage with Ed and I after the live is over for the conversation. We love to have that engagement. Ed, can you read that one? Because I can't see it.
Yes, Texican, thanks for the $4.99 super chat. The guy was told by police or sheriff that this wasn't a priority, so they couldn't send anyone right away. And she questions, not a priority.
What are your thoughts on that, Ed?
I mean, I know this is a small jurisdiction, and they're covering a sizable area, but that dog don't hunt for me.
Yeah, that is not that's not something that I'd want to hear.
Not on a high media profile case. Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? Right? You got international attention on this case, and that's what you say.
Yeah. So Sophia,
if that turns out to be true.
Yeah. Look at this. Sophia Grace is saying, wow, I'm getting so much information. Is this a preview or is this the actual live?
No, different subject matter tonight.
I love that comment. She's like, is this a preview or the actual live? Tonight, you're not going to want to miss it. I keep repeating it because it's worth repeating. 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We are going to have a retired New York City medical examiner, chief of staff, Barbara Butcher. What was it, over 2,200 death investigations that she was involved in, and she was also instrumental in, because you worked for her, right? She was your boss with the World Trade Center DNA identification. You want to give the guys and girls a little bit of a tickle for tonight about Barbara?
Oh yeah, well, Barbara, when the medical examiner systems went away from contracted doctors to the medical legal death investigators, Barbara was hired as one of the first round of physician's assistants that would come out to the scene, working directly for the medical examiners as a medical legal death investigator. And so Barbara and I would work death scenes together, me from crime scene in the NYPD and her from the OCME. And so we became friends, and then we were on the lecture circuits together in the various NYPD homicide schools, the sex crime schools, and so forth. And then later, we would join up again after I retired. So to work together at the New York City Medical Examiners. I was the director of forensic training for the forensic science training program that we were running for the Department of Justice. And Barbara was my direct supervisor. I only answered to Barbara and the chief medical examiner, and that was my chain of command. So it was great working for Barbara for 8 years. That we won 3 $1 million grants that covered each million covered 2 years worth of training, and we had trained investigators, death investigators, and crime scene investigators, homicide investigators from all over the nation in New York City during those 6 years.
That's fascinating. And that's what we're going to have. That's our guest who we're going to have on tonight at 8 p.m. to talk about the outline of the autopsy and all of the exams that may or may not have been conducted on Kiely Rodni. Now, again, Barbara does not have any inside information, but she knows all about these different medical examiners' offices and what their capabilities are, what their constraints are, and some of their strengths and weaknesses. So we're going to talk to her about a lot. It'll be an hour's action-packed, very informative live stream to help you understand what goes on in these things and why sometimes they take so long. Listen, we have Cassie Carley's. We're still waiting for her tox. It's 5 months.
Unbelievable. Unbelievable.
5 freaking months. I talked to Ray just yesterday, and I also talked to Dylan Round's mom. I talked, Candace expressed her frustration and things that are taking so long in her son's missing persons case. Suspicious, he disappeared under suspicious conditions. But Cassie Carley, I mean, Ray is beside herself. You're into month 5 waiting for the Huntsville Medical Examiner's office to give her a tox report. Did my sister get poisoned? Did she get killed by this savage or not? It's a yes or no. So, listen, Hey JB went live with her just a couple of days ago and expressed the frustration. I hope we're not going to be in this same situation here, waiting 4 to 6 weeks to get this information back. Aussie Gardner, thank you so much for becoming a channel member. Ed, I'm looking forward to tonight. I hope everybody considers inside. You're going to be directed straight from this live to tonight's live stream. So don't worry, you're not going to have to do any work. You're going to go straight from here to the tonight's show. Just what is it like? It says a little notice. It's like over here on the left. So it's a notice bell. You just hit that notice bell, and it will remind you a half hour before we go live.
Can I just answer a question, Ron?
Yes, sure.
So Bertie, S to the fourth power. Yes, Barbara is a physician's assistant.
Thank you. Thank you. Moishi O says, maybe someone from the Children of Corn will grow balls and speak up.
You know, that's funny because my brother-in-law, when he looks at a black and white photo of me and my 5 siblings, he calls us the Children of the Corn.
Holy crap. Hey, listen, man, you know, as long as it's done respectfully, I feel it's important that everybody gets their frustrations out. And we have, listen, by a show of hands in the chat, who here is frustrated and angry and mad as hell? If you're mad as hell, put a 1 in the chat. If you are okay with this, put a 2. We shouldn't get 1, 2 in this chat. It should be all number 1s. If there's a number 2 in this chat, I don't know what I'm going to do. I'm not going to block the person, but I'm just going to say, wow. Yeah, so there goes the number 1s. I'm sure somebody will put a 2 in there just to get a rise out of us. But yeah, it is.
Yeah, I see all these number 1s. I don't see a 2 though, but I see a friend from Guam. I just got to tell you, my friend from Guam, don't eat the betel nuts.
Oh, geez.
Okay, yeah. If you've ever been there, she knows what I'm talking about. Oh
yeah,
God,
I've never been there. I just saw a 15 in the chat. But okay, listen, guys and girls, I want to say thank you for tuning in and thank you for subscribing to this great community. You know, again, subscribing is for free, and we give you this 30-day challenge. Subscribe to this community. If you like what you see, or if you don't like what you see, you can simply unsubscribe. It's free to do that as well too. But I don't think that you'll want to unsubscribe. Again, there's no restocking and shipping and handling fees. There's no 15% restocking. Give us a try for 30 days. Watch some of our previous live streams. I think you'll be pleasantly surprised that coming from a law enforcement perspective, detectives and crime scene investigator wise, you're going to get everything and then some of what you hoped for.
Right, and we practice courtesy, professionalism, and respect here. This is a no jagaloon free zone. Okay,
correct.
No jagaloons allowed.
Yes. If you can't say something respectfully to your fellow chatters or us or one of our guests, then, this is not a place for you. So I appreciate each and every one of you. Ed and I want to say thank you. Again, our prayers and thoughts go out to the folks in the UK on the passing of the Queen. It's 96 years young, right? A real full life. Has done a lot of good stuff. And, we send our prayers and thoughts to our great friends in the United Kingdom. So guys and girls, 8 p.m. tonight, Ed Wallace and I will see you. Ed, any parting words?
My usual, folks. Remember, stay safe, stay prepared, and watch your 6.
Thank you, guys.